This time of year, many people around the US are seeing the same exact symptom of their system freezing up. This is a very common term that a lot of people hear, and I want to show why it freezes up, and I'm going to share with you 3 easy ways that you can check to correct the matter and avoid having to call a contractor and spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. First, we're going to show the 3 reasons that cause freezing, and then we'll show the 3 ways that you can resolve those problems. So the way that the refrigeration cycle works, very simply put, is the compressor is circulating the refrigerant. It's a closed system. So it sends refrigerant into the evaporator coil where that refrigerant evaporates, and that's how it gets ice cold, and then it gets pulled back into the compressor out to the condenser coil. That's basically the very simplified version of how the refrigeration cycle works. And so here's what can happen causing the lines to freeze. So number one, if you don't have enough refrigerant in the system, that can absolutely cause freezing. Now the reason this happens is because pressure and temperature are directly related when it comes to refrigerant. When that refrigerant is going through the system, it evaporates at a certain temperature. And when it's on the right charge, when it has enough refrigerant in the system, it will evaporate, and it could be 40 to 50 degrees. That's generally the sweet spot that the evaporator temperature is going to be at. But when you start to lose refrigerant, that evaporative temperature is lowered. And when it gets past 32 degrees that refrigerant evaporates, it's going to start building frost and it's going to start freezing. I've looked at many coils that looked just like this, and we'll show you exactly how to open up to observe your evaporator coil as well. But you can see it just turns into a huge block of ice. Until you turn it off and thaw it out, you're not going to be able to resolve the problem. So we're going to get into a little bit of that more in detail here in just a moment, but that's one of the reasons why your system could freeze. So we can see this demonstrated nicely on this scale here. So we have 410A in the purple scale and green in the R22 scale. That's the whole purpose of these different colored rings, and every refrigerant has a pressure to temperature ratio. So with R22, we only have to be up here at about 75 psi to get to about 45 degrees on our evaporator coil. Now this is the temperature of the evaporator coil, the saturated temp, and this is our pressure. So don't get those two confused. So 75 psi correlates with 45 degrees roughly, whereas in 410, to get up to 45 degrees, you have to be up here at the 135 psi mark. So that's why the running temperature of your refrigerant is going to be different between R22 and 410. A good gauge is about 75 psi on a pretty warm day for R22, and 135 to 150, somewhere in here on the low side for 410A. But see, if our pressures drop, let's just use R22 for instance, if our pressures drop down to say 55 psi, that's right here at the 30 mark. So that evaporator coil is going to freeze when it's anywhere near that 32 degree mark, and it'll continue to freeze and freeze until you have a huge block of ice. The second reason is that if your air filter is dirty and it's not allowing enough air to pass through the evaporator coil, that will absolutely cause freezing as well. So the refrigerant charge could be totally fine, but if your filter is clogged, it's not going to allow enough air to flow past that coil, and it's going to freeze up. The third reason is very similar to reason number 2, and it's your evaporator coil. If your evaporator coil is clogged because your air filter was clogged and you were letting stuff bypass the filter, that's the same thing as if your air filter was clogged. It's not allowing enough air to flow through that evaporator coil, and it's going to freeze up. Okay, so now that we've discussed the 3 things that cause freezing, let's go back and show how we can resolve that problem, more than likely for free, and avoid having to call an HVAC tech and spend hundreds if not thousands of dollars. So the first and obviously the easiest is the air filter. Make sure that that air filter is clean, and equally as important is the filter rack. I've seen so many houses that have a filter rack that poorly filters the air. It allows a lot of air to bypass that filter, and that goes right into the coil and gets clogged in the coil. So if it's in your budget, I highly recommend installing a Honeywell 4-inch filter rack. If you install it properly and make sure everything is sealed, It's going to make sure that every ounce of air that goes through there is going to be filtered, and you're not going to end up with ever having to clean your evaporator coil. As far as the filter replacements, my go-to place is filterbuy.com. You can get those filters set up on a subscription plan and have them shipped right to your door. They're affordable, they're made in the USA, so no tariff stuff, and it takes all the brain power out of replacing your air filters. So check them out at filterbuy.com. Now moving on to number 2, and that is the evaporator coil. So there's a few ways that you can clean the evaporator coil. First of all, if you have room with your line sets, you can actually take the front cover off and slide the whole evaporator coil out. If it was designed properly, that's the way you should be able to do it. And I've demonstrated it in this video. I'll make sure and leave it at the end of this video so that you can check it out. But as you can see, we just slid it out. We were able to clean that evaporator coil real nice. Basically looked like it was new when we were done, slid it back in, and we were done and back in business. Now, if you can't slide your evaporator coil out, you just don't have the clearances with your line set, we're going to show you right now on our demo furnace how you can do this with the coil in place, and you can still get an effective clean on your coil. All right, so here is our demo coil that we're going to be demonstrating on, and as you can see, these lines prevent this from going this way. So if this was in a actual home installation, you obviously wouldn't be able to move that without bending your lines. Please don't try to force anything, because you can really easily bend these copper lines and cause more issues than you're trying to solve here. So what we're going to be using is this Klein, I believe it's a 7-in-1 nut driver. This thing I use all the time. I absolutely love it. So you can pop it off, put it on a drill if you want, and it goes to, I believe, 9/16 or 1/2 inch, all the way up to 1/2 inch, and you simply pull it off, and you can orient this however you want, and you can slide these back up into store. And this thing just makes life a breeze, because all of the sizes that your HVAC system is going to be on this single nut driver. If you want to know where to find this, simply go to DIYHVAC.org, and you can find our Amazon store right there, and you can pick one of these up. So we're just going to go through and remove all of these screws that hold the coil in place. Actually, on this one, we might not even need to remove this, so let's just go ahead and remove the left half of this cover here. So we're simply going to pop this off, slide it over, and there we go. So now we can see our thermal expansion valve right here, and we do have a little bit of wiggle room here, so we can move this out, but our objective is to remove this metal plate and to access the inside of here with a vacuum, with a coil cleaner that we can clean it, or with a fin brush that we can clean the debris off of that coil. So for starters, we're simply going to pull this gingerly, and we just need enough room to where we can get our hand right here. That's pretty much all the room we need. So you don't have to bend these much. You really don't want to be tweaking them too much. But what we're going to do now is go through, and obviously if our venting was right here, we'd need to remove that venting, but that's super basic. It's just a few screws and you can pop your venting off. So we're just going to go through and take all of these screws out. Huge shout out to Alpine Home Air for sending out this demo system so we can demonstrate repairs like this. If you're looking at getting a new system, check them out at alpinehomeair.com. The other part about this tool is the tip is magnetic no matter which bit you have on, so you can keep your screws in one place and not risk dropping them down in your equipment and stuff like that. All right, so we got all of the screws out here. So what we're going to do next is fold this little flap up right here. So we just got our little flat blade screwdriver. Just going to bend this up to where it's flat, and that should give us enough room to slide this out. Okay, so this is going to be the tricky part here. We're going to need to get it up above this drain pan so that we can slide it over this lip. And sometimes you just have to kind of bend this plate to get it far enough up. Or you can actually lift the coil itself a little bit This coil is just sitting on the pan here. So we'll just lift up as much as we can. Just like that. Now we can bend this and slide it out. There we go. So we successfully got this out. Now, if you don't have enough room here and you need to cut this in half, you can absolutely do that. As long as you put some tape over it when you're done, you can cut this out and you can do this. It might be a little bit more difficult to get some snips in there to cut it, but that's one way that you can get it out. All right, so this is what you're gonna see when you open this up. Now, obviously this is a brand new coil. We're not gonna see anything excessive here. We've run this a handful of times, but as you can see, we have plenty of room to get our hand in here. We can get a vacuum and just start pulling debris off. Now, one thing to note is that you do not want to push these fins over. The fins are going up and down, and so if you're gonna vacuum this, just make sure you're going up and down and just be real ginger with it. And then of course, once you have the big debris off, you can take a can of aerosol coil cleaner and you can just spray it up in here and get the remainder off. And then the condensating water will actually rinse that cleaner back off. Okay, so just for demonstration purposes, this is my Milwaukee vacuum, and we just have this attachment on it. So we could simply set our vacuum there, and we can get all the way up into this apex, sucking any loose debris off, and we have plenty of room to really get all of that sucked off of the evaporator coil. And then we can again go through and spray this with evaporator coil cleaner, and then we throw our cap on and are good to go. Now, the third and final thing was that you have a low refrigerant charge. If you've confirmed that your evaporator coil is clean and that your air filter is clean and that you have enough airflow, odds are you have a low refrigerant charge. So start with your air filter, then your evaporator coil, then you can move on to your refrigerant charge. Now, you can purchase a set of gauges for relatively cheap on Amazon. I have them in my Amazon store, so make sure and check those out. And I highly recommend the low loss fittings. They allow you to connect and disconnect really easy without getting a huge spurt of nitrogen. Now, with R22 on the low side, you'll see about 75 PSI. If you're well below that, you probably have a low charge or you have something else going on. And with 410A, you're gonna see about 130 to 150. Now, 454B is gonna be very similar to 410. It's a little bit lower pressure, so maybe 120 to 140, somewhere in that range. But if you're below the 30-degree mark on that scale of your refrigerant, that pretty much means that you have a low refrigerant charge, you have a leak, and you need to get that resolved. Well, guys, I hope you found this video informative and that it saves you money. That's our main objective here at the DIY HVAC Guy YouTube channel. And something new that I want to throw in is our monthly newsletter that helps you to save money every single month with your HVAC system. Not only that, but as soon as you sign up for our newsletter, it will automatically enter you for our monthly giveaway. We've given away stuff as big as a full mini split system. We've given away a year's supply of filters from FilterBuy, EcoBees, Google Nest, a lot of really cool things. So make sure and check out our newsletter. Simply go to DIYHVAC.org and click join now. Additionally, on our website, you can find our sizing guide. You can find our frequently asked questions, where we answer a lot of the questions when it comes to replacing and repairing your system, this new refrigerant change, all of those things. And of course, you can also find good quality replacement HVAC equipment and all the tools that I recommend to do the job. Now, if you want to see the full in-depth video of cleaning a super filthy evaporator coil, you can find that video right here. And until next time, you guys be safe. Later.